Alright, before this video begins, I just want to say it is extremely long, so for that I do apologize. However, it is very detailed. I just want to explain why the headliner fails, show exactly the failure points, and the entire process basically. And I did kind of go a little bit too in depth with certain parts, so for that I'm going to include in the description as well as the title card timestamps to points where you might be interested. So I did go over why it fails, how it fails, choosing the material, choosing the right color, and installation of course, and some advice at the end. So please check out those timestamps if you don't want to watch a whole video. Otherwise, enjoy. If you own a Mercedes W210, you probably have had experience with the headliner sagging, and if not, you probably will in the future. And if you search the forums, there'll be a lot of people telling you how they fixed it in DIY ways. I personally have tried to fix it myself quite a few times, but there's no proper solution like doing it the correct way. So as of the filming of this video, I have a spare headliner that I'm having recovered professionally in black Alcantara. And there's a few pieces I took out of the interior of this car, which I'll show you soon. But let me just show you the DIY way that I did. That was easy and cheap. And of course, it did last a few years, but it still degraded over time and peeled off. So if we open the door, we will see I have the visors missing and the A-pillar. So those are pieces that I didn't have as spares, so I had to use my own. But we'll see. You can actually already see the sunroof panel is sagging. And once I remove these handles, this was not sagging until I removed the handles. So once I removed them, they just gave way. And my back actually looks, not like it's not sagging, but if you look, this is one of the unfortunate things about doing it yourself. And the way I did it was I just peeled it off and I tried to get as much of the foam out of there as possible. And unfortunately it stains the headliner, so it looks terrible. But at least it's not sagging, but it is starting to come off in a few places that it was not before. So just over time the glue fails. So originally this headliner is on a fiberglass board right here, and it is foamed onto it. If we look right here, this is the parts I haven't touched. It will indent. And it's more apparent here, like that. So that is foam. And one thing is, if your headliner isn't sagging, which it will in the future, but if you keep touching it, that will just make it worse and will fail quicker. So the right way to fix this is to remove all the foam and just glue it straight onto the board. And there's only one problem that this causes. Because the foam is a pretty thick material, right here on the pillar, you see like it's nice and the gaps are like pretty close. So this will decrease the thickness of the board slightly. So there'll be a little bit more gap up here. But I'd rather have a little bit more gap and not have the headliner sag. So here's a closer look at the repair I did. So it was a pretty sloppy job, but at least it's not sagging. Like these are the usual spots right here. You'll see this starting to come up a little bit here. And the staining is probably the worst part, and we'll see when we peel it off. I wasn't able to get all the foam off, but when you start and I did this in the car, I did not remove the headliner. So there's a clip where the rear light is that you can remove very easily, and you could bring the headliner down just enough to work with it, and that is what I decided to do. And unfortunately, doing that, you make a big mess. So I had foam everywhere in the back right here. And you can't get all of it. It's just, there's just so much in here, especially in the car. But this is a really quick and easy fix for this car that lasted me probably, I would say, 5 years. But I mean, people would say, wow, your headliner's not sagging, but when I take a closer look, it's pretty gross. And it looks worse than it is. I mean, that's just the foam. The foam is that color, it stains it. It's not that bad. But that is probably like one of the worst parts about this entire car. All right, so I know I'll have a lot of people saying that, yes, you could do it yourself. Taking it off is not that hard, and recovering it's not that hard. I know that, but I just want perfect results. And I know personally that I'm not skilled in this department. I could take the headliner out just fine, but I met someone that worked at Renntech when these cars were new and still currently does work for them. And he works close to where I live. So I fully trust him, and I'll show you exactly what was done. As of the making of this video, he's still working on it. Now, two things. I know people are going to say I could have gotten it done cheaper and quicker, but doing things the right way, I think it is worth waiting for. And hopefully once we see the results, you'll see what you get for when you pay for the quality and the experience that someone has that you don't. So if you have the AMG cars, they will all have a black base interior. So mine's a black and red, but so this is not a typical black. It is the charcoal or anthracite color they call it. So when it's gray, it's like two-tone in here. And I personally would prefer it all black. And I know some people will disagree, but black Alcantara will look really good. And I'm doing the rear deck too. These, they're black from the factory, but they fade to like purple and then white. So mine is still fairly dark, but it is getting a little purple there. You can kind of see it. So I'm having this redone. The C-pillars, the headliner, all the plastics, the A-pillars, the visors, everything. And I am considering, I haven't decided this time to do these B-pillars, but right now they seem to be holding up and they're already black. All right, here's the old headliner out of the car. I just want to show you what it looks like. So pretty much up until this point, it's all original adhesive, and from this point on, this is the stuff I did. So we'll see the foam comes off from the material, and you know, it's just kind of nasty. And we'll see it is a fiberglass board. So these parts right here were actually fine when I had it in the car, when the handles were still installed. They were holding it together. They were not sagging. There was some sagging along the visor, but when it's closed, it was fine. But other than that, the main sagging is always from the back right here. And we'll see that my stuff is stained because I glued it, but the glue's still holding up pretty well. So there were some casualties taking the headliner out. So we'll see that right here is broken off. And we actually did a few practice runs taking this in and out of the car. So we thought it'd be a good idea because we had to bend it slightly to get a ratchet strap to go all the way across and back. And we ended up crushing right here. So that is another imperfection on this one now. And I did end up having to rip out one of the clips right here. So there's a clip on the other side that we will see is missing. So I had to rip one of those out. And then on my new one, the issues with that one was these corners on mine are actually really strong. They were super compromised there. So right around here is like all cracked and screwed up. So the board had to be filled with Bondo and sanded, and took a lot of prep work to make it look as good as it does. So that was just some tips. Try not to stress this too much. There's a document in Mercedes Whiz which gives the instructions on how to do this. They say to bend the board right around here. It's either I forgot which side of the dome light. It's either on the left side or the right side of the dome light, but you bend it there, and it is meant to do that. So that is the natural stress relief point on the headliner. Some more areas of failure are these points right here. You see there's some glue on both sides, left and right. There are clips here that clip this board into the actual metal roof of the car. So these fail, and that will kind of cause probably a little bit of rattle noise. It's not too bad. I didn't notice that on my car. Other than that though, the only other failure I see back here is this metal frame that goes around the sunroof. Same thing, this glue just dries up over time and doesn't hold it. So we'll see that mine's right about to come off, and here we go. Here's the part number, color code. We'll see my production date right there too. October 2001. Wow, 24 October 2001. So my car has a production date of October 30th. So made pretty close to the end of the production days. Well, last of my knowledge, when they did have these brand new and you could order them, the material is not the same as this. It's a different material. It's like what they use on their modern cars, and not the nice material, it's the cheap material. So it will not match. So I think what is best in terms of results and money spent is taking your headliner out and the sunroof panel, minimum those two, and having them reupholstered professionally. You'll save the labor by doing it yourself. It's not terrible. It is just time consuming, so it'll probably take you a whole weekend. You could try regluing it yourself. It's not terribly hard. It's just like areas like this where you gotta stretch the material and the corners and stuff. It's a little bit difficult, so unless like you're really good with upholstery, I would recommend just taking it to someone that knows what they're doing. And in my opinion, if you do have the budget, doing this in black Alcantara is the best way to do it, and doing it without the foam is the absolute best way to do it. The guy that did mine has been doing this since these cars were new, and he's never used the foam ever. He always glued the material directly on the board, and he said in his 20 years of all the cars he's done, not one of them has sagged. It's only the cars that use the foam that sag. The only downside to not using the foam is that this material will become thinner. So this is actually pretty thick. It's a lot thicker than mine because we had the sand mine down too. So these areas right here in the corners where it meets the window, you will see a little bit more gap. But I think that's a small price to pay to have a more permanent fix. All right, so one complication of doing headliner in black is there's more than one black. So this big sheet is called charcoal black, which what I'm told is what most OEMs like Mercedes use in their new cars. And this is what just a default black. And this smaller piece is the darker black. So you'll notice that the texture is slightly different. So these are two different types of Alcantara, but don't pay attention to the texture. We're just gonna pay attention to the color because I'm gonna get this texture right here. But you'll see there's quite a bit of shade difference. So generally, Mercedes of my era were closer to this, but we'll have to see how it looks in the car. And here's a factory black dome light. And we'll see it's probably closer to this. And then this is the paint we're using. So don't mind the chips, but the color, they're pretty close. But you'll see there's a bit of a difference. So I have to decide which one I want. And this is actually turning out to be kind of a very difficult decision. And it also depends on where the lighting is coming from. So like from right here, the charcoal looks like a better match. But if I stand from right here, it's like the darker black looks better. All right, and now I'll try to look at it inside the car. Unfortunately, my windows are pretty dark, so it might be hard to see. And just like I suspected, it's pretty hard to see. So we'll see that my interior is kind of apart. But we'll lay out the Alcantara and let me see if I can get a light. All right, here's the light. Here's the charcoal, which we'll notice the plastics are very close to charcoal. They pretty much are charcoal. And let me lay out the black. So they're so close when you like get up really close to them. And this is what's really hard about making this decision. Because if you go too black, then it clashes too much with the rest of the blacks in the car. Or if you go too light, then that also clashes too. So I think charcoal is looking like the more attractive option here for me. And it's kind of hard to tell on the fronts because they're red, but yeah, that's pretty close. And here is the darker black. So I think I'm gonna go with charcoal. All right, so here we are inside the Brabus E65. Here is the charcoal Alcantara. There's the black, and we'll see, it seems like the charcoal will match better under certain lights. And this car has Alcantara headliner right now, so we'll use this to compare. We will see that charcoal looks like a match. And then here is the black, not quite a match. And the plastics are black in this car. All right, here we are inside of the E60 AMG, and this car has leather headliner. So I'm just comparing this purely for color. So leather and Alcantara are obviously way different, but here is the charcoal with the black leather. And Mercedes will actually refer to this leather sometimes as charcoal too. So, and then it has fabric A-pillars. The visors with the black plastic. This is all leather too. Here's a comparison of the Alcantara charcoal versus the leather. I think it's pretty close. Here is the black, which that looks a little bit too dark. All right, so it's been a few months since the last clip, And in the last clip we were deciding which color to get, black or this is charcoal or anthracite. So we decided on the anthracite, but I just got news that they sent what they call anthracite, but it looks a lot more gray. So I'll insert a picture right here, and it's probably really hard to tell in photos, but they look really similar to the anthracite, but in person, in the sun, it's like clearly gray. So now we gotta try to find another material that better matches this. This is the correct anthracite charcoal material, and this is the black. So I am once again going to be trying to decide a color, and this process is very time consuming. So one of the key steps that many people skip is making sure this board is nice and smooth. And we'll see that after sanding it quite a bit, a lot of this old adhesive and fiberglass just comes off because the Alcantara will show any imperfections. So this is a very lengthy step, but you have to make sure this fiberglass board is absolutely clean. So we'll see a lot of this stuff comes right off. All right, today we're gonna be removing the headliner. So one of the first things I did was remove the A-pillars. So the way you do that is when it's attached, you wanna pull, you see these are the clips. You wanna pull it out so it'd be like coming that way and it comes up. You gotta be really careful because the plastic to where these clips attach are very sensitive and they will probably break because they're so old. But the way you do it is you grab it out towards that way and up. And then next up I did the sun visors. So really simple, there's two screws here, two Phillips screws. And then I unscrewed the little clip right here and this stays. So just remove the plastic. And then I did that on both sides. I did the handles. So just Phillips screw there, handles come out. And you should do that on the rear as well. And then I did the mirror. So we take this down, which we'll see are these clips right here. So you grab a flathead screwdriver and you bring them in, and then it comes out and it's all connected. So you gotta disconnect all the stuff and be sure you make note where it's plugged in. And then you're gonna disconnect the mirror, and then you're gonna pull the mirror straight down. So I'll do this in the next step. And you're gonna wanna make sure that this is disconnected too. And then to prepare for the headliner removal, we are going to have to roll this back, sunroof shade, and then we are going to have to take this plastic piece out. So the way this comes out is, there's a clip right here. You're going to bring it in, and then you're going to pull this down. So you see the clip here is broken, but the clip here is what it looks like on both sides. So you push it in towards the middle and bring this whole thing down. All right, so what ended up happening here was when I tried to release that clip, it broke. So you're gonna have to probably buy a new one of these because the sun, like this gets really hot right here. It just cooks this plastic and it's over. But I just brought it down and now we can release it. So there it is. So now with this removed, we got to give power. We're going to roll this back. And this would be a great time to grease your sunroof tracks. All right, so now with that open, we gotta close this. And of course, because it's sagging, it's getting stuck, so be careful. So now from the outside, we have these. Well, make sure you clean all this stuff too. It's really dirty in here. My broken clips are in there too, and some leaves, but we have these clips right here. So you'll need a flathead screwdriver to bring them inward. Okay, so this is a little tough to do one-handed, but this is the clip. So we are gonna grab a flathead screwdriver and bring it in, see, like that, and then pull it out. So you have to, there's 4 of these, so one on the left, one on the right, and the back. So the way we do it is we start with the front, get the front out and up, and then lift it out, and then you do the rear. All right, here it is removed. That was actually pretty simple. So you see that the way it works is kind of like spring loaded. And actually for the rear, if you wiggle it just right, you won't even have to get the screwdriver on it. So here it is. See, the plastic's already breaking. So now is the time to clean all this stuff up, so please do that. But now we gotta remove this little seal right here. So we just gotta pry it up. So we'll see that the way this works is just gotta get a good grip and pull it up. And that's it. So we're gonna reuse this, so put this off to the side somewhere safe. All right, so gotta pull the C-pillars off. And the way you do that is you pry these clips out. So once these are out, the next step is you grab a 17mm and unbolt the seatbelt from there. And the seatbelt just feeds it through this hole and they remove completely. Okay, so once these 2 are out, you gotta take the middle bolt out. And then after that middle bolt comes out, the seat comes up and it comes out of the car. All right, here's what the bolt looks like. Now the center is loose. These seats just come straight up and out. All right, so once we remove these, we have to remove the headrests. And to do that, it's pretty tricky actually. We will see here that, I'll show you, but the first thing you have to do is push them in the up position, and then you will see that black clip right there. So what we have to do with that black clip when it's in the up position is pull it down. So it'll be kind of pushed up like that. So you push it down and hold it, and then you can push the headrest back and it'll come out. And you have to do that on both sides. So it's a little tricky, but that's how you do it. And once that's out, take the headrest out, and you have to take these little clips out too. So I'll show that outside the car. And then there's a clip right here on both sides. Those come out, and then this is loose. So the next step is to pull this little weather stripping down and out. So there'll be this plastic piece in the way right here. So we gotta remove this trim piece here, which will be like that. So just pry carefully up. It's just held in by clips, and be really careful, it's very sensitive. Then on this one, you wanna just pull it out. So it's just held into these clips here. Just pull it out real carefully, and you should be fine. With the rear seats out, we can move on to the next step. And for me, the next step is going to be removing the front 2 seats, the center console, and the steering wheel, so we can have as much room to get the headliner out of here as possible. So we will start by disconnecting the seat. So pull out your carpet slightly and just disconnect all the wires. And then we will have these little plastic covers for the bolts, so pull them off and then grab the bolt. So I believe that is a Torx E12 or E14. So there's 4 of them. Just take them out and then position the seat. Before you unplug it, position the seat to where it's easy to remove for you. All right, with the front 2 seats removed and the steering wheel and the center console, we got as much room as possible to go out the front passenger door. And that's how we're doing it. All right, old headliner's out. And we barely got the new one in, and that was very difficult. So obviously with the new headliner, because it's nice, you have to be really careful. So I'll insert some pictures, but we taped up the edges all along, left and right, and we taped up the clips back there so we would not damage anything inside. So we taped right here, taped this corner, taped that corner, and we did the same thing over there and over there. So we just had to, I'll show you in the pictures, but we got in through here, and this part always is iffy, so you got to bend it just a little bit, ever so slightly, and try not to bend it too much because you can crease the new material. And bring it back, and you gotta make sure your shifter's all the way back. It'd be easier if you took this out, but it's not necessary, so we just had it back with no knob. That helps just a little bit too. And you gotta watch this knob, so when you get towards the middle right here, that's where the knob gets really close, so just make sure it doesn't make any contact. And you just gotta keep pushing, and the doors have to be open, so that rear is gonna come out slightly. It's gonna come out that rear door slightly, and then you gotta maneuver it until you get it in all the way, and then you could lift it up. On my car, I decided I wanted to do a radar detector and a dash cam front and rear. So this is what all this wiring is. We tapped into the tele-aid, so that's what all the wiring is. So we're gonna have a dash cam in the front and the back. So we'll see that wire hanging for the rear dash cam. And then for the front, we are gonna have a front dash cam and a radar detector. So that's all pre-wired. I'm not gonna put in just yet because I will wrap up the interior completely, take some photos, and then put those things in. So once you get the headliner inside, you're gonna have to align it. So that is very tricky. So there is a massive clip that runs all along the back of the sunroof here, and two clips in the back, so left and right. So here are the clips, and they always fail. So we had to re-glue mine, but they go right here, left and right. So you just gotta guide it in there. So you start out with the headliner pushed forward slightly, and then you guide it back and make sure it's clipped in all the way. And then after that, or maybe even before, you have to make sure it's aligned left to right. So double check these holes, make sure they're lined up as best you can. You have to double check left and right, make sure all the holes are lined up, and then the headliner's in. All right, make sure you're clear of everything on the rear deck. Everything's disconnected, and the seatbelt's loose. We're gonna pull this up, and it comes right out. We're gonna feed the seatbelt right through this hole. All right, so once you remove that clip, we'll see there's a cutout for it, and the seatbelt comes right off, and the rear deck is removed. The last thing left is that rear section of the deck. To get that rear section of the deck out, we will need to take off 3 bolts, one right there, one right there. They are 10 millimeters, and one on the left. So let's go to remove those. Okay, with those bolts removed now, this is loose. So we can now wiggle it out of here carefully. So before removing that rear section, there is an access hole right here, and we will need to unclip the brake light and the sunshade. So just feel it with your hands, and you'll see it right here. Those wires, just unclip those, and then it'll be ready for removal. All right, the last connector is actually, you gotta push this foam back and reveal it under here. I actually kind of broke a little bit of the foam, but this connected here, and now this thing's ready to come out. This will require some finessing out of the car, but it will come out. Just be real careful. So once this is out, the way that this connects is these clips right here. I think there's about 10 of them total. So be real careful taking those out, because you can crack this board. All right, today is the day to finally get all the rest of the pieces of the interior back together. So we're going to do the rear shade and the rear deck first. So let's check out this rear deck. We got double stitching along the headrests. Very nice. All 3. It's pretty much impossible to stretch the Alcantara to contour around these edges, so you have to stitch it. But I think the stitching makes it kind of look even cooler, so I like it a lot. And here, I thought about doing Alcantara for the speaker covers, but if you do Alcantara here, it will reduce the output of the speakers. I wanted to keep the sound quality, so I went with these, it's like the OEM style fabric. So we just went with new fabric and it matches good enough. So perhaps in the future, I do have a spare set of these. I could get them redone Alcantara if I really wanted to match. But for now, I think it's good enough. And we kept the Bose logos. I did want to keep that because it is correct for a facelift car. Here are all our plastics that are painted. So this is a color that we did. It was the charcoal anthracite color that Mercedes uses, but it was a little bit too gray for my liking. So we added a little bit of dye or tint, whatever you want to call it, to get a little bit darker. So I think this matches really well. And we'll see that because this is paint, here's an example, we will need to apply some touch-up later, but I will be doing that once it's installed because there could be some more casualties while installing. This is kind of sensitive now. So now that these are painted, you want to touch these as little as possible just because the oils on your hands will kind of deteriorate the paint quicker. But I think it was well worth the sacrifice of durability for the finish to make it look better. So we'll see. We even did the dome light. So this piece comes off. These buttons come out. This one you can take out, but because it is so old, you will most likely break it. So we just mask it off. And we did not paint the insert because it would be covered up anyway. And painting this will just allow the chip easier during install because this is going to actually have a lot of friction on it. But once it's all covered up, you won't even be able to see this gray. And here is the comparison of the plastic that is painted to the Alcantara. It is a very good match. The regular black is a little bit too dark, and the charcoal anthracite color was a little bit too light. It was way too gray compared to this material here. And here are the visors. So very nice. And on the visors too, we have these strips along the contact patches. And that is because when you swivel this out and in, it will chip off that paint. And when you do that, it will chip off the surrounding paint as well. So when you leave these strips, it will not chip off the surrounding paint. So that's just a small thing you'll have to live with, but it is still better than it being all gray. And that is like really the only gray you'll be able to see once you, like if you take this out of the clip. But other than that, like everything is perfectly color matched. No two-tone, tri-tone interior here. All right, just to recap before we move on to reassembling the rest of the interior, I did put the back seat back together, so we'll have to take this all apart to do the rear shelf. But we got the A-pillars removed, no sun visors, no handles, no SRS. We're gonna take the dome light out again. We gotta reattach the B-pillar, so first we'll have to do that. And of course, C-pillars are out and rear deck is out. So right now I was driving around with the taillight just plugged in, so there is a little short harness here that I unplugged. So the main harness gets plugged into the short harness right here. So here's the short harness. I'll see it is dated 37th week of 2001. So we have to reattach this to the new brake light. And you should buy a new brake light because over time you see this plastic gets brittle and it breaks. So check it out, not much force and it will break. Okay, so if your 210 has a rear sunshade, the rear parcel shelf will be in two pieces. So here is the sunshade section with the taillight. So we will see on the rear, this is upside down right now. On the sunshade section, we will have a hole right here. That is where we will have to feed the harness into. So we will first plug the harness into the taillight and then carefully insert it. So here is the third brake light part number in case anyone wants one. This is for the black one too. So that's the color code 9B51. And we will see it was actually manufactured really recently in 2019. So here is the fresh brake light and here's the old one. And we'll see the top of the plastic was becoming kind of gray. And some of the resistors they're using have changed. But overall it's pretty much the same. We'll see this has the Hella logo, Mercedes and made in Germany. We'll see it still has that. So I think it is well worth the money to buy this just because it will look a lot nicer. And also this plastic won't be as brittle, so it'll be easier to work with. Okay, so what I ended up doing was instead of inserting it with the cable in, I just inserted the brake light itself. It is a little difficult, especially trying to be careful not to scratch or damage anything. So I inserted the taillight first. And then I just had to feed the cable through the access hole, which we'll see was slightly offset more. So what I ended up doing was kind of manipulating this foam with a screwdriver to open up a little bit larger towards the side. And I kind of just did it by mostly feel. You were able to see it just a little bit, but that is how I got it in. So now we will go ahead and insert it into the car. And before we tie anything down, we're going to obviously test to make sure the connection to the taillight's good and to the sunshade. Or before we get in the car, let's admire this just one last time. Yeah, double stitched all the way up here. Really nice. So the new taillight obviously looks amazing, but with this material, it's a little bit of a tight fit, so just be careful installing that. But this thing looks pretty incredible. I'm a big fan of the double stitching all along. Got our sunshade in there. Okay, we got the rear sunshade section in. So this part really sucks. The cable for the third brake light is pretty short, so you'll have to kind of feed it in halfway and then go through the trunk to the other side and feel around for the wire. There's the access port back here, which I'll show in a little bit. And make sure you don't get any of these. If you have the sunshade, the wires here, you'll have to kind of plug it in before you fully seat it in. It could get tangled up. So just make sure everything seats nice. So you see it's a little loose. Once we bolt it down, it'll be nice. But just tuck in the insulation as much as you can, as nice as you can. And then the final step before we bolt this all up will be to check if the sunshade works and the third brake light works. And we'll have to help the sunshade for the first time. So you'll see it's kind of inside too much, recessed. So we'll help pull it out, and then we should be good to button this up. So coming in through the trunk, we will see here's the access port, and this is the wire right here for the third brake light. So we'll tuck that back up, and we will see right here, that bolt right here is from the sunshade. So we will bolt those up. There is one on the right hand side, one on the left hand side, and one in the middle. So we gotta bolt that up right now. So here are the nuts we'll need to secure the rear sunshade. They are 10 millimeter, so let's go ahead and put them on. All right, we got the bolts tightened down, so let's go ahead and check the operation if it works. All right, the key will have to be on for the third brake light, but let's see. All right, we got success. Everything works in the back here. All right, we got the sunshade guided back in really nice. So now we're ready to move on to the rear deck. So for this, we'll have to take the rear seat out again. Okay, to get the rear seat removed, there's the latch right here. Pull up on both sides. And then the same thing on the other side. Get the seat out and take it out of the way. All right, next up we gotta take the rear bench out. When you remove the center buckle, be sure to pay attention to how this is in orientation with the actual buckle. Okay, so now that you have the seat belts undone, I would recommend doing the third one too, it just makes it easier. Now we pull up on the seat backing and pull it that way and out. So just be careful removing the rear section of the back seats, because these metal pieces can grab onto the door panels or the paint. So just be really careful removing it. It'd be a lot easier if you had a second person helping you, but one person can totally do it by themselves. Okay, I also decided to remove these pieces off the side. So all you do is just pull up, be really careful. But before you do that, you have to make sure you remove this. So remove this from here. One of mine came off with the clip, so now it's attached to the door jamb fuzzy thing. So I took that off too partially. So now we got all this area free, and this will help us take this off. This will aid us in helping make sure we get the headrest put on correctly. All right, to put the headrest in, we will start by putting the plastic pieces through, and then we will line them up with the catches right here. And once they're in, you kind of just pull towards you on both sides. It's easier with two hands. So you hear a click, and that's how it's in. Once the headrest has clicked in, we will just need to put these plastic pieces in. So this is the correct orientation. You will kind of feel them in, and then from this side, we will see just barely. That is how they insert. So you see the right side's kind of tabbed in already. Now we gotta to the left. And when they're in, they'll look like that. They'll snap in left and right. If your car is equipped with the latches for the child seat, you will also have these pieces. So some of these cars actually are not equipped, but I think most US cars are. We gotta insert these plastic pieces, and we'll notice there's a tongue at the front and some clips on the side. We'll put the headrest in the upright position. And then the way that this works is, we'll see, we will line up the opening with the latch and then slide it in back first. And then just clip it in. And that's all there is to it. And now we'll see, this is what the plastics will look like all fitted. And now we can add the cap. All right, here is the beauty cap that goes over the latch to cover it up if you're not using it. So the correct way to insert this is those two notches at the top, left and right, are supposed to face the front of the car, while that single one in the middle faces the back. So once we orient it correctly, we will just slide on carefully, press it down, and it fits nice and snug. So now we'll repeat this for the other two and we're done. All right, here is all the plastics in the back completed. All right, we got the rear deck in and the headrest. That was kind of a pain. So we just slid it in there. This one we need to kind of manipulate with a screwdriver to fit. And these, we had to snap them in after the fact. So we got it in with the headrest and then we snapped them in. And the easiest way to do the headrest is when they're up. You gotta make sure that's kind of positioned as high as it can go. If it's down, you kind of grab it like right here and then you pull towards you to let latch into its mechanism. And then that's pretty much all there is to it. Repeat it 3 times. But we just tested the headrest and they do function. So now I am doing some of the plastic, so I'm doing the SRS. So if we'll take a look at this clip, this is the receiver clip for the SRS. We will see that the SRS logo has a pin on the top. So that will kind of line it up. And once it's lined up, we will see there are little clips that will hold it in place. So we will have to push down on this fairly hard. And the best way to do this is, I removed these little gaskets around the doors, front and rear. And this will give us a little bit more room. The B pillar will have to be off to sneak our hands behind the headliner, feed the clip in there, line it up, and still holding it with one of our hands. With our other hand, insert the SRS and push down as hard as you can until you hear it click. So we will see with this removed, we will have enough play here, front and rear, to sneak this in. So we will just make sure that notch is at the top, and then we will go behind and do it. So I will have to turn the camera off and do this. Okay, we'll see one of my fingers is holding it in place, but we'll line up the best we can, and then we'll throw the SRS logo over it. All right, just make sure you clip in both sides, and we can adjust it after the fact, but that is how it is done. So now we got both sides done, and we can continue. Okay, next up, we are gonna add the plastics to the mirror, and we're gonna replace this. So first step is to remove the dome light, so make sure your lights are off, and with your hands, just pry the cover. You can also use a screwdriver, but your hands will do. Just be careful, take it out. Then the next step after this, we will release these tabs here with a flathead screwdriver. We will see that I have one side off. So all I did was push down on this tab with the screwdriver and pull down at the same time. So now I just gotta repeat the other side. We'll get it down. Okay, now the dome light is down. That was pretty uncomfortable because you have to apply a bit of tension. But here it is. Just pay attention to how the wires are connected. Take a picture. So now we will disconnect this and remove it. Okay, now the next step is to feed the wires through the hole for, there's usually a plastic cover here. This one doesn't have it. You pop the plastic cover and feed the wires for the rear view mirror. And then for the rear view mirror, you're just gonna pull straight down. Just be really careful and don't grab the mirror, grab kind of the base right here and pull down. You will have to apply a decent amount of force, so just be really careful not to scratch anything, but that's all it takes, just pull it straight down. Next, we are gonna remove this switch for the SOS so we can insert it into our new piece. So we just find the connector up here and remove it. Okay, now we are ready to prepare our new pieces to go back in. So the first step is to insert this. into the new SOS piece. Okay, here's our new piece. So if yours is painted, be really careful. We're gonna have to pop this open and feed it through. And also, while we're still out of the car, we are gonna wanna pop this piece right here. You see that tab? We'll pop that piece so this is open. That'll allow us to guide it in and then snap it in to secure it. So right now is the time to do that. We can access it from behind and not damage the paint. All right, we have fed the switch through. It will snap into place and secure itself with these tabs. So now let's go ahead and release the locking tab up top, and then we can insert this. All right, just be really careful and it should release. If yours is old, it'll probably break, but we need to release this so we can release that latch right there so we can get it in. So now all we gotta do is feed the wire and get this all the way up in there and then close the latch. And the way this works is there's like a little tongue there you feed first towards the front of the car. Kind of get lined up. All right, to get mine in, I kind of had to wiggle it and kind of put my hand in here and help it. And also, if you have the mirror off, you'll have enough wiggle room to push this down just a little bit and kind of really help guide it in. It's kind of a tight fit, but it does fit still. So we just connected the wire back here, and now we're ready for the mirror. All right, here we have our mirror. So the first step is gonna be to feed the wires through and kind of hold it there. So I'm gonna have to put the camera down for this. But basically, once you feed the wires through, you might wanna pop the mirror out of the socket right here to give you a little bit more wiggle room so you don't scratch the paint. And then you just pop the spring in, which is really difficult to do, and that'll be it. Okay, next up is the B pillars. So to do this, we'll have to take this fabric weather stripping off first. So we'll see it is clear of the A and B pillars. Next up, we will have to move the seat forward to access the bolt to undo the seat belt. Once the seat is far forward enough, we'll remove this trim piece. Once this trim piece is off, we have a 17mm bolt, so we'll go ahead and unbolt it. When you're removing the bolt, pay attention to the washer, which is behind the belt. You'll see that the belt is sandwiched between the bolt and the washer. So here's what it looks like when it comes off. This allows it to pivot. So we will put this away and keep it somewhere safe. What it looks like in my case, it's not easily coming off, so I'm just gonna leave it on. Okay, so the next step is to feed the seat belt through the B pillar. And then once that's done, we will need to line up the adjuster. We'll see that hole will line up with that. And we'll need to make sure the little handle is in upright position to go over the latch, which will allow us to move the seatbelt up and down. Once the B pillar is fed through, we'll need to line it up with this plastic trim piece at the bottom, and we'll see it slots right in. There's even a little indentation for it. So we'll just make sure it goes right in, seats all the way, and then we'll make sure to have this seated correctly as well. If you have seated it correctly, you'll see this will spring up and down, and we can adjust the height of the seat belt. So now that this is clipped in with just this piece right here, we can actually add the 4 remaining clips to the car. So here are the clips that we'll need to put on. These will go towards the bottom of the B pillar, and then these will go towards the top. So left and right, bottom and top. And this is what it will look like once it's seated. The top ones feed in between this little slot, and the bottom ones just go over, and then that little fuzzy weather stripping will cover it up. Be sure to attach the bottom clips before you kind of go in all the way, because there's not enough room once you start clipping in the top ones. All right, now installing the C pillars. We're gonna have to go very carefully, so get comfortable back here. And the first thing we're gonna do is feed the seat belt, and the way we're gonna feed it is the way it's installed. So just like that. So we'll see if this is how it faces outward. That's how it's supposed to come out. So normally you think it'd be like this and this faces outward, but it is not, it's opposite. So if your trim is painted like mine, do it very carefully and very slowly and kind of guide it with your fingers to kind of stretch it open. If it's not painted, go ahead and just slap it right in. You won't have any issues. So let me go ahead and do this. Okay, when it comes down to the buckle, slide the buckle up, push the stopper in first, and then do the buckle. That way there'll be a little bit less thickness to this, so it could get in easier. All right, once the seat belt is in, we will just make sure all the clips are supposed to be there. So on this one, we're only gonna use these 2. Normally you'll have this one, but mine is omitted. So now the hard part is we're gonna have to latch on the hooks 1, 2, and 3 hooks into the hat tray. So this is very difficult if you have Alcantara, which you recovered over the factory material. So it's going to be a lot thicker. So you're going to have to kind of wiggle it in there real carefully. So I'll try to get that set up for you. Okay, this might be difficult to see, but you see the hooks are on the side of the hat tray. So you just got to make sure they seat in properly. There are slots for them. So this might take a while. So I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. All right, this side is fully seated. And then the other side is almost fully seated. I finally got it in the slots. So we can wiggle it probably just a little bit more so you guys see it properly. And we'll have to be mindful of this. So I just have to make sure it's pushed down. And we'll have to latch all the clips. All right, and we got the passenger side C-pillar in, so sometimes you're gonna have to be a little rough with the clips, but it just takes some elbow grease. Just be gentle, as gentle as you can. But here we are. So this one is a little stretch from the material, but over time it will straighten out. In fact, it's already pretty straight after I adjusted it, but here we go. Rear deck, sunshade area, C-pillars, headliner, all done. Now let's move on to the final steps. All right, installing the handles. So the front and the back install the same way, but just make sure you have the correct front and rear pieces. This is the only difference is the hook area, and they are left and right specific. So you just pop open these right here. Once the screw access holes are uncovered, we will line it up with the receivers. So this is how they attach to the car. So I'm just gonna hold it right here and attach the screws, and you can cover the access ports, and that's it. So it's just 2 Phillips screws. So here are what the screws look like. So it's the same for all 4. Just repeat it. Really simple to do. And when they're done, they will look like this. Okay, once it's bolted in, all you gotta do is close these access ports. It just snaps in. And you are done with the handles. To get the sunroof in, make sure you push it back all the way and then remove the weather stripping piece here. And then we are ready to just insert it. It'll slide right into the channels. Okay, so the way you do the sunroof is you start with the back and slide it in. So all you're doing is latching these pieces in. So you see they push, they slide right in, and they seat. So just do it on both sides and it seats in perfectly. Okay, once the sunroof cover is in, the last piece is to insert the weather stripping trim right here. So this is how it goes in. Once it's lined up, you just push down and it presses in. Okay, once the sunroof cover is in, you can slide it back as much as you want. We just need a little bit of room up here. We're gonna move the sunroof forward. So we'll move it forward. Okay, so we feed the plastic stopper for the sunroof in kind of like sideways, line it up. So we gotta just be mindful of the rubber on the side. Get up all the way, and then you just push it up to clip it in. All right, and here it is fully seated. You'll see there's almost no gap between the glass and a piece. So now you can close this, and that is done. All right, and the final piece I'm gonna do is the A-pillar. The reason I chose to do this last is in case you need to make any final adjustments. Removing the A-pillars will usually result in breaking these tabs. So leaving it towards the end, we have some adjustment, but if you're all ready to go, the A-pillars are super simple. You'll need to remove the fabric weather stripping, and then same thing as the C-pillars. You'll have to line these notches up, and as you see, these are with the Alcantara on top. It'll be a little bit thicker and more difficult to wiggle in. So we will see the notches right there. Just line it up there, and it will snap into place with these clips. So as I'm going, I'll look through the side to make sure they're lining up. So here we'll see they are kind of going in right there. And now we just gotta make sure all the plastic tabs are lining up with the clips. So I'll get this snapped in and we'll see the result. All right, here is the A-pillar all in, and it fits pretty nice. It is a little bit thicker, so that's something we will have to live with. We'll see. The headliner is thinner because we removed the foam, and the pillars are thicker because we kept the material because it's impossible to remove. So now we can put the fabric weather stripping back and we will be done. And finally, we have finished the headliner. So everything's all in, all the plastics, every little piece. So let's check it out. Here it is, all completed. A-pillars, all the front plastics, visors, sunroof, B-pillar, C-pillar, and the rear deck. Everything looks amazing. So as we'll see, I did mention earlier that some of the stuff you cannot peel off the old material because Mercedes actually sprayed it on there and it's like permanently bonded to the plastic. So the A-pillar is one of those pieces, and we'll see that the A-pillar is actually fairly thick now because the Alcantara goes over the old material, and the actual headliner is thinner because we removed the foam. So we're gonna have a little bit of an odd gap here, but that's just something we'll have to live with. So one place that this is particularly evident in is the B-pillar meeting up with the headliner. We will notice there was a slight bit of more gap than there was before, and also with these fabric weather strips, it's probably hard to tell because of the lighting, but there is just a tiny bit more gap up here than there was before. But overall, like, it is super good. Like, we'll see when the light hits at certain angles, you'll see there's more gap. One thing I want to note is that there is some room for adjustment with the B pillars. I am able to move that pillar a little bit higher if I wanted to. Another place that this is evident is where the C pillar meets up with the headliner. We'll see that the C pillar is just a slight bit thicker than before. So we have this kind of a little bit more gap. Well, it's not really a gap, it's just kind of sitting more on top than it was before, but it still does look pretty good. And another place we'll notice that there's a little bit more gap is right here because the board is now thinner. But then the C pillar will make up for it by being thicker, so that is kind of odd to see that now, but that is something we will have to live with. So I know some people will say they cannot live with that gap, so for those people, they do make this Alcantara material with the foam on it, so that'll fix those gaps. However, I would highly advise against that, because if you have a foamed headliner, it is going to fail in probably about 10 years, but for some people that's fine. I just never ever want to do this job again, so gluing on the board was a no-brainer for me. When you glue it on the board, there is a nearly 0% chance of failure again, especially if you use the correct adhesive. So this adhesive, once it's cured, even with heat, it will last an extremely long time, way longer than the foam would ever. So that is why I decided to do it without foam. And please paint your plastics. Like, now I know it is a little bit more prone to chipping, but it looks so much better. This looks so goofy when people have gray plastics with this dark headliner. It is just so dumb. And please do the visors. Don't get visors from like an S-Class. They don't look right. The Alcantara never matches. Just get yours rewrapped and it looks so much better. So I also do want to mention that if you get a dome light from a W202, like a later model car, a facelift, they do come in black. I did buy one and we did paint it anyway just so it would match all the plastics better. So that is what happened with that. The vinyl and plastics in this car are not a true black. We'll see within the sunlight there is a gray tone to them. And if we look at other plastics in the car, like we'll see that tweeter cover, it is not a true black. And I think if we look, so take a look at that color real quick, and then we'll go ahead and look at my door handle. It looks very close, so I think we did a good job matching it. It might be a shade off, but I think it matches the Alcantara really, really well. Another thing I want to point out too is that when we looked at a door panel, and I have one that is completely black, so there are 4 different shades of black that we found on one door panel. So this upper portion here is different than this portion here. So on mine this is leather, so of course it'll be different, but on a vinyl one it is also different. This section was different, and then of course this bottom section is different. This is a fabric. So I have extended the sunshade a few times and it is guiding in a lot better. It will take some time for this material to kind of stretch out. So the fact that this is new material and that some of these pieces were removed for a couple months for me, it has not gone back to its original form. So we'll see that this edge will slowly get back into shape. It's still a little tight right here, so that will come back over time. A couple heat cycles in the sun will help it much quicker, so just FYI. And the sunshade still does work, of course. So far I have had a couple people sit back here and the C-pillar seatbelt hole is not rubbing off at all. So far the plastics are good. The only place I'm going to touch up is the clips for the visors. So we will see that there is a slight chip right there on the receiver, but we'll also see that I kind of need to redo those strips. So the contact points are offset slightly from this, so we just followed the contact point all along through, but that was not the case, so it was offset, and I will have to go back and redo that. But that is so small, like you don't even really see it. I'm only zoomed in on it right now, but here's like the regular view, you never see it. That is the only area that I'll need to touch up. Luckily the mirror was fine, all these plastics were fine. So I did mention that we did use some Bondo on this board. So right around here, if you look and feel closely, you'll feel some imperfections behind the material, but overall it is hard to see. So just be careful removing the board and try not to damage it, so your results will look better than mine. But overall, like even mine, like it's really hard to see any imperfections really. You could do so much to fix it when the stuff is out of the car and just sand it all nicely, get it smooth, and you'll be able to have a nice layer underneath the material. And now for some advice, I highly recommend you have at least another person help you out if you are removing the board yourself. It is a total pain, and what I decided to do, I took out all the interior and fed it through the door, as you saw. That is the hardest way to do this. It is not the easiest way. Mercedes Wiz instructions show it to do that way, and they don't even remove the seats or the center console, so they had even less room in those diagrams I showed you. But it's a really tight fit, and you're gonna have to bend the board just so slightly. But the easiest way, which I did not do and I wish I did, you have to remove either the front or the rear glass. So it was recommended to me by the upholstery guy to remove the rear glass because it is easier to do compared to the front glass. So I don't recommend doing this yourself. You should find a professional that works with glass to do this. Just have them take it out in about an hour and then do your thing. I would have it prepared before, have them take it out, put it in, have them install the rear glass, and then you can continue installing it. That would save so much time because I spent quite a few hours removing the interior. Taking the headliner down is actually a fairly quick process if you don't have to remove much else. So A pillars come out easy, B pillars come out easy, C pillars come out easy, deck comes out easy, and all the plastics come out fairly easy. So that could probably be done in about 2 hours if you're working fast. And then have the guy come remove your glass, take out the old headliner, put in the new one, put the glass in, and then clean up the job. And that seriously is probably about a half day to full day's work, so it's really not that bad. If you are like me and don't want to remove the glass, then a couple tips. Your body is going to be in kind of awkward positions throughout doing this job, especially remove the seats and all that. And if you go slow and try to be careful, it's going to take a toll on your back. So if your back is not the strongest, you are going to have some body aches for sure. And having two people is, I think, absolutely minimum. We had three at one point guiding the headliner in, and that made it a bit easier. So having one person spot and two people wiggle it in there real carefully, and make sure you tape up the corners, anything that could potentially get damaged, scratched, or whatever. So let's talk about costs a little bit. So I'm not going to talk about labor costs because that'll vary for everybody. Some people can do this job themselves, and for those, I commend you, good job. However, the material alone, if you get genuine Alcantara, which I did get, Alcantara is the brand name of the material that they use, is micro suede. This is the actual material that manufacturers like Mercedes and of course like others like Porsche and all the high-end exotics use the same company. So the cost of the material was about $1,000 to do the A pillars, B pillars, C pillars, rear deck, and the actual headliner board and sunshade, and of course the visors. So material alone, that was a material alone just for the roll, and FYI, every roll is different. So if you are lucky and you order this soon enough, you might be able to get the same color from the roll I got. However, they do make new rolls every so often because it doesn't last forever. I did spend probably about another $200 buying new plastics. I did buy the last available rear door handles, so if you try to buy those from Mercedes, they should be no longer available thanks to me. I did reuse my front ones since they were nice enough. I bought new mirrors for the visors, so those are brand new. And then I did buy a new SOS that was broken on mine. So most likely you're gonna break some of these plastics taking it out. I did break the A pillar too. I brought the last, I think it was the driver's side, or I can't remember. It's one of the A pillars. I bought the last new one from Mercedes, and they don't have that in any color anymore. So sorry about that, guys. But yeah, just be prepared. You're gonna have to probably go on eBay, buy some used plastics, and have them painted to match. So I did buy one brand new, and the other one is tan. So if you peel off my Alcantara, there's a tan original piece in there. But of course, covered up, you'll never see it. And luckily I did have a spare headliner, a spare sunroof, a spare rear deck to use, so my car wasn't completely apart in the time that it took to do this. And the time that it took to do this, it will vary for everyone, but if you get to work, it could be done within a month easily. If you're good with upholstery, you could probably do this in a week. My particular instance took much longer because I was just waiting in line. The person I used is extremely busy, so that is why. From start to finish, this video took probably about a year to film. Another piece of advice, there is a substitute material to this Alcantara. It is a knockoff, and it is pretty good. It's pretty hard to tell the difference, but there is a difference. And it is cheaper, so that is an option if someone doesn't want to spend too much money. But the genuine material is just so much better, and it lasts longer in terms of color. So if your car is exposed to the sun a lot, no tint, this can obviously fade. The genuine material lasts much longer. You can order this genuine Alcantara material with the foam backing if you really want it. I don't recommend doing it, and of course other materials are available with the foam backing as well if you want to retain the originality of the material. Now if you want to go overboard with the Alcantara, in case you want to do more than what I did, you can also do the dash right here underneath. So this is just that cheap fabric material. Go ahead and do that. You can also do the lower portion of your door cards, all 4 door cards. This would look great in Alcantara as well. And on the rear seat, you can do this little trim right here. This will look great in Alcantara. And you can also do the fabric weather stripping. You should do all 4, it'll look great in it. And same thing with the rear door panel, all this. The ashtray, you should do the ashtray if you want to do that in Alcantara. And you could also do this plastic piece right here that meets the B-pillar. I think that'll look good too. And since these are fragile on break, you can do this in Alcantara as well. I really do enjoy this Alcantara material. In fact, I want to get a little bit more, so I got a key cover off eBay. So like I said, unless it's from the same roll, the Alcantara usually never matches. So this is actually a really close match to what I used. And the material does feel like genuine Alcantara, and it has all the logos etched out, which is really nice. Here it is in the sun. It's actually a really close match. So I'm very satisfied with that. If anyone is interested, I'll link it in the description. This is for the newer style key. I believe they also make it for the older style as well. So I will link both in the description, so check it out. So there you have it, Alcantara headliner and a Mercedes W210. This is how it should come from the factory. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below. And thank you for watching. For those that have come to the end of the video, I have something special for you. So fortunately for me, I got to become pretty good friends with Andreas. So Andreas, thank you for working with me on my car. And if you don't know who he is, he worked with Renntech back in the day and still does. And he did all these cool cars, and he got to share these photos with me, and I'd love to share them with you. So me being a absolute 210 fanatic, of course there are some here, there are 210s, there are a couple. I love seeing this type of stuff. I love Mercedes tuners, and this is just so cool for me to see. Also see we have a magazine and a poster. So a car that Andreas got to work on is the Renntech V12 W210 they had. And if you don't know this car, I will link the article of Car and Driver down below. This car started off as an E39 M5 car, and they put a V12 in it, and this car is just incredible. Of course the performance is great, but the interior work was amazing as well. So let's take a look at that. So that car is this W210 right here with the custom body kit, widened fenders, OZ wheels, and check out the interior. Andreas did all the interior work back then, so look at that. All done by him. Incredible leather, Recaro seats, everything. The door panel, the rear seats, the carpets, headliner of course. This is a Victor steering wheel that they did, custom wood. See that nice blue color. Custom gauges, leather dash, that looks incredible. And then another really interesting car is, of course, we have some more E60s here. We got a white E60. This is the same body kit as this one. However, this is a V8. This is M119 6-liter. And check it out. Got the black and white interior. And this is before AMG did it. And we have another E60. It's a wide body with a standard body kit. Red and white. I know some of you recognize this car. This car was posted on the internet a couple years ago. And here we have another one. This is a 96, so this car started off as M104 as well. And I do like the AMG body kit with the BBS wheels. Really nice looking car. And this had the black and red interior, which I'm a big fan of. Here we have a R129. So this had the OZ Opera staggered wheels, custom red wood trim. So there's how that looked like. Of course they had a Victor wheel in there, very nice. Another car that you might recognize is that this is the Renntech R129 that was featured on Motor Week. This is the purple car. So what was cool about this was the color matched, I believe these are OZ wheels, 6-liter M119, and they had the purple and tan interior. The purple was to match the exterior paint. Really cool. Another 210 some of you might recognize is the Jerry Seinfeld E60. So this car is actually pretty interesting. I got to hear the history about this car, which is so awesome to hear about. So we'll see, this has the two-tone AMG, they call it blueberry interior. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story. So this car is a press demo car that Mercedes actually sent to Renntech, and this car originally started life out as a E50 AMG, which we never got in the States. So this car never had a VIN number. This car could never be registered here. It was just purely as a demo. And Renntech got it. They did the wide body on it. It came with the AMG kit, obviously. They put these beautiful two-piece BBS wheels from the R129, and they did the 6-liter engine. And I believe this only got the Alcantara headliner, and they kept the blue interior stock, which is really cool. And this was the car that Jerry Seinfeld used for, I think it was only 1 or 2 years, and he gave it back. And now, if you know, this car belongs to the Mercedes Classic Center. So if you actually are nearby there, you can check it out in person. This is a C140 coupe. It had an Alcantara covered roll bar, also on some nice two-piece BBS wheels. Another E60 Renntech with some Speedline wheels. These are really popular back in the day. And we will see it has Renntech branded Alcon brakes. Really cool. Of course, Renntech exhaust. Really, really nice. Yellow R129, and this appears to have some sort of body kit and some 3-piece wheels. Also custom interior as well. This is the Renntech 124. This went on that rally back when this car was new to show off like kind of their what they can do with these cars. So we'll see it. This I believe had an AMG kit at the time and some Speedline wheels, it looks like. Here is a 126 coupe, and this car is actually pretty famous. A certain flipper dealer owned this car, and they publicized it on their Instagram and YouTube. So this car is pretty cool. Andreas had mentioned he drove it and this thing was incredible, so that's really awesome to hear. Well, these are the only 2 pictures of the car that I have access to. This particular car with this blue interior, and we'll see, has that blue paint. This is a 500E that later had a manual transmission conversion way back in the day. You could probably find pictures of this car online. It was for sale like a while ago. And this is the car. This is back when it was automatic, so this is pretty cool. This was also kind of a demo car that they had that they sold to someone. This is a 300 CE that they had. This was a full build minus the body kit. So this car had a M103 that was made to 3.6 liters, a custom transmission, it was still auto, and a full interior. So we'll see what they did. So everything on the interior was done, every little piece. You see that fabric weather stripping's done. The needles on the actual instrument cluster are wrapped in leather. Everything is done. The wood is burl walnut, which this car never came with. Just really, really incredible. And here are some of the production photos while they were doing it. There's a dash, there's the leather they used. Here is the engine. This is pretty cool. They're pretty discreet about their mod, so this just looks like a regular M103, but it is a 3.6 liter version of it. And then they painted the lowers as well. Add some Brabus wheels, some big brakes. That car is pretty incredible, the amount of detail that went into the interior. This poster is actually from AMG. This was to showcase what they could do. So we'll see, this is the V12 car that they had. Had the body kit, the 3-piece OZs, and particularly what they wanted to show off was the printed red leather. So we'll see that the inserts have a printed design on them. Really, really nice. So there you have it, some of the awesome stuff that I was able to see. So thank you to Andreas for showing me all this stuff. Thank you for telling me all these awesome stories. It's truly been the experience of a lifetime, and it's truly been a pleasure. So thank you so much. I don't know if you're watching this, but I truly enjoyed every second of this. I hope you watching enjoy this too. I asked my Instagram if they want to see this stuff. I posted it there a little bit. So if you want to see this stuff before YouTube, follow me there. And I really hope you like the video, and thanks for watching.